He walked through those same glass doors, wearing a plain black suit and calm confidence in his eyes. Nobody recognized him, just another man stepping into a clothing store. But for him, this moment carried a weight that no one else could see. Years ago, this place had marked him forever. As a teenager, humiliated in front of strangers, he was pushed out by people who thought his mother was begging. All they wanted was to buy him a new shirt. Back then, his mother had just received a little extra money from his father's double shift at the factory. They weren't rich, far from it, but they were proud. That day, they wanted to celebrate with something simple, a new outfit for her son so he'd stop being teased at school. But the moment they walked in, everything shifted. The glances, the whispers, and then the ultimate insult, being asked to leave because other customers felt uncomfortable. That moment stayed with him. Not just the embarrassment, but the look in his mother's eyes, the one that said she felt small. From that day on, he promised himself he'd never let anyone make her feel that way again. And he swore that one day, he'd come back not to ask for respect, but to own it. What no one in that store knew now was that this man, once ignored and humiliated, had returned. And this time, he wasn't there to shop. He was there to buy the place. He grew up in a neighborhood where dreams were a luxury, and every coin mattered. His father worked long hours in a noisy mechanic shop, hands always stained with grease but proud of every repair. His mother managed everything at home, stretching every dollar like magic to keep food on the table and hope in their hearts. They didn't have much, but they had love, and he never once felt poor until the world made him feel it. At school, he wore the same shoes for 2 years. Other kids noticed. They laughed at the holes in his backpack and the faded collar of his shirt. He never said anything, just lowered his head and kept walking. But deep down, he started to understand what it meant to be seen as less. And the worst part wasn't the bullying. It was knowing his parents were doing their best, yet it still wasn't enough. Despite the struggles, he never lost his drive to learn. He'd fix old radios, take apart fans, and help his father in the shop after school. He loved the smell of oil, the sound of engines, the way machines made sense when the world didn't. His curiosity became his escape. While others wasted time, he quietly sharpened his skills, without ever realizing those small repairs were shaping his future. Every night he'd hear his parents whisper in the kitchen, worrying about bills. He'd pretend to be asleep, but their stress etched itself into his mind like a blueprint. That's when the idea took root. If he could learn enough, work hard enough, maybe, just maybe, he could give them a better life. Not just survive, but truly live. He didn't want revenge, he wanted redemption. It was supposed to be a happy day. His father had picked up some extra shifts and brought home a small bonus, enough to finally let them buy something new. His mother smiled like she hadn't in weeks, holding his hand tightly as they stepped into the store. For the first time, he felt a glimpse of what other kids might feel walking through shiny aisles filled with clean, folded clothes. But the warmth didn't last. They barely made it past the entrance before the stares began. Cold eyes, silent judgment. A woman near the counter clutched her purse tighter. One man whispered to his wife, pointing discreetly at their worn-out clothes. And within moments, a security guard approached them. Not with a greeting, but with suspicion dripping from every word. "Can I help you?" he asked, not as a question, but a challenge. Before his mother could answer, a second guard joined, followed by a manager. The air grew heavier. Someone had complained that they were causing discomfort to the customers. The manager's voice was soft but firm. "I'm sorry, but we'll have to ask you to leave." The boy looked up at his mother, confused. She was trying to stay strong, nodding politely, but her eyes were filled with humiliation. She held his hand tighter and whispered, "It's okay, sweetie. Let's go." But it wasn't okay. It would never be okay. As they walked out, empty-handed and heartbroken, the boy turned one last time toward the store. He wasn't angry, he was hurt. And in that silent moment, as the doors closed behind them, something inside him changed. A fire was lit, not for revenge, but for dignity. One day, he thought, they'll remember this face. And this moment. That night, silence filled their tiny home. His mother tried to act normal, putting dinner on the table and asking about his day, but he barely touched his food. Her smile was soft, forced, like a cracked porcelain mask holding back tears. He didn't ask her about the store. He didn't have to. The shame in her eyes said everything, and that silence echoed louder than any insult ever could. Lying in bed, he stared at the ceiling for hours. The faces of those strangers replayed in his mind. How quickly they judged, how easily they dismissed him. He felt small, powerless, and angry. Not the kind of anger that explodes, but the kind that buries itself deep and becomes fuel. That night, he made a silent promise to himself. One day, they'll know I was worth more than they ever imagined. From that moment on, something shifted in him. His curiosity turned into obsession. He began studying everything he could about machines, business, money. Anything that could lift him and his family out of that invisible box the world had placed them in. He wasn't just fixing things in the garage anymore. He was fixing his future piece by piece, bolt by bolt, with the memory of that day burning behind every decision. What they thought had broken him had actually built him. The pain of that humiliation didn't disappear, but it transformed. It became his edge, his reason, his hidden strength. While others his age were chasing distractions, he was building discipline. While the world kept doubting him, he kept growing, silently, fiercely, and with one goal: to never feel that powerless again. He started small, cleaning parts at the same mechanic shop where his father had once worked. At first, no one noticed the skinny young man who arrived early and left late. But behind the grease-stained uniform was a mind that never stopped observing. He watched how the business worked, how customers were treated, how trust was built, and how it was lost. Every day he absorbed lessons others overlooked. With time, he became more than just a helper. He could diagnose engine problems faster than some of the older mechanics. But he didn't stop there. At night, while others slept, he read about business models, customer service, and how to manage people. He learned how the most successful companies weren't just about profit, but about purpose. And that's when his dream began to take shape. He would open a garage of his own, one where no one would ever feel judged. It wasn't easy. He saved every cent, worked weekends, and when he finally opened his first modest shop, he did everything, from fixing cars to cleaning bathrooms. But word spread fast. People noticed something different about his business. Prices were fair. The waiting area was clean. The staff smiled. Customers were treated like equals, whether they drove a luxury sedan or an old pickup. Respect wasn't optional. It was the standard. As months passed, his garage became the talk of the town. He didn't advertise much. His clients did that for him. One garage turned into 2, then 5, then a franchise. But even as the business grew, he made sure his values stayed the same. Every employee was trained not just in technical skills, but in empathy. Fix the car, serve the person, he'd say. And they listened, because they saw how much it mattered. What made him different wasn't just his work ethic, it was his memory. He never forgot what it felt like to be looked down on. So he built a business where no one would ever experience that again. His success wasn't built on stepping over others, it was built on lifting them up. And that, more than the money, more than the growth, became the true reason behind his rise. The day he walked back into that store, the glass doors opened with the same sound he remembered from years ago. Nothing had changed. Same layout, same lighting, even some of the same faces. But everything inside him was different. This time, he wasn't a boy holding his mother's hand. He was a man holding the title deed. He had purchased the entire store chain after one of his companies bought out a struggling retail group. The name of the store hit him like a flash of memory, and without hesitation, he asked to visit that exact location. He didn't announce who he was, he didn't demand attention. He simply walked in, dressed simply, no designer suit, no flashy watch. And just like before, no one recognized him. The manager from all those years ago was still there. A little older, a little slower, but the same cautious eyes. When he approached the counter, she gave him a rehearsed smile. "Can I help you?" she asked, not with hostility, but with indifference. That indifference hurt more than any insult. It proved nothing had changed. At least for them. He let her finish her sentence before calmly placing a folder on the counter. "Actually," he said, voice steady, "I'm here to speak with the staff. I just bought this location, and I think it's time we made some changes." Her face froze. Confusion turned into shock. Whispers spread across the floor, and for the first time, they were the ones who didn't know what to say. But he didn't raise his voice. He didn't gloat. Instead, he gathered the team and simply said, "Years ago, someone like me walked in here and was judged. I don't want that to happen ever again. This store is now under new management, and starting today, kindness isn't just encouraged, it's required." The room was silent, but his message echoed louder than any shout ever could. He had every reason to fire them all, to humiliate them the way he had once been humiliated. But instead, he chose something much harder and much more powerful. He called a private meeting with the staff and calmly told them the full story. Some were shocked. Others lowered their heads, realizing who he was. The manager didn't say a word. She couldn't. He didn't shout, didn't demand apologies. Instead, he laid out a new vision for the store. From that day forward, no customer would ever be treated based on appearance, clothing, or class. He announced full retraining for the staff, including emotional intelligence, diversity, and customer respect. Those unwilling to change would be respectfully dismissed, but given a second chance elsewhere if they asked for it with sincerity. Rather than punish, he offered possibility. He hired young people from underserved communities, giving them the job opportunities he once wished someone had given him. He created an open-door policy for complaints, not from fear, but from the desire to create a truly fair business. The store began to change, fast, not because of fear, but because they were finally led by someone who understood what real respect meant. And while some employees quietly left, many stayed, grateful for a second chance to do things right. The community noticed the difference. People who once felt excluded now felt welcome. That store, once a symbol of shame, became a model of dignity. And the man who had once been told to leave, he became the reason others were finally treated as they deserved to be. Sometimes the most powerful response to injustice is rising so high that you lift others along the way. He could have closed the door on that store forever, but instead, he opened it to everyone, proving that true strength isn't loud, it's kind. And if you think this story was emotional, you need to watch the one on the left, about a boy abandoned by his own parents who grew up to become the only person that could save their lives. It's a story of heartbreak, forgiveness, and the kind of twist that stays with you long after the screen fades. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video that makes you a better person.